Hi, last night I watched the all-new reboot of Hellraiser, which was released on Hulu in October 2022. Then I discovered in a simple Google search that it's available as a digital rental now in the UK, and it costs £3.50. I was expecting it to turn up on Disney Plus because of it being on Hulu, but no, it's just been thrown onto the internet for anyone who wants to see it. And I watched it, and I was quite disappointed. Um, the concept of Hellraiser, if for those who aren't familiar, is that there are beings called Cenobites who exist in hell, and they are regarded, or they describe themselves at least, as angels to some and demons to others, who explore the extreme possibilities of pain and pleasure through a puzzle box, the Lament configuration box. Um, which can trap the unwary or the cruel and brutal in their web of usually chains and barbed wire. And having previously seen the first three films from the late 80s and early 90s, and then there have since then been, I think, another seven, only the first of which was involved, had any involvement from creator Clive Barker, upon whose novel The Hellbound Heart, the first film was based. We now have a new film with a proper budget, a reasonable cast, and in the US at least, decent distribution on the Hulu platform. And it follows a young woman, a recovering addict living with her brother and his boyfriend, who has also started sleeping with a courier type. And together, to try and make some money, she and her lover decide to rob the shipping container where they think art treasures are being stored. The only thing inside, however, is this strange looking puzzle box. Um, and she winds up being kicked out by her brother. She starts fiddling with the box, and when her brother tracks her down, he, in turn, suddenly disappears in a load of screaming and blood. So she tracks down where the box has come from, finds a connection to a wealthy pervert, and gets involved with the whole Cenobites bit. It's very long. It's been said before, both by me and those who know better, that you can't really sustain comedy or horror over 2 hours. Any longer than that is too much. And although there have been exceptions to this. I mean, Dawn of the Dead, of course, is well over 2 hours long. But the extremes of emotion you need to sustain an audience watching a horror or comedy movie at 2 hours, it becomes tiring. Hellraiser is just over 2 hours. It's the credits that push it over. And it is too long and it's too baggy. And it's odd that the plot is relatively thin and the characters are also quite loosely sketched. Um, it feels like the film could be shorter, it could be tighter, it could be pacier, it could be more atmospheric. I think if you approached it at more of a clip, there would be more of a sense of threat from the Cenobites planning to drag this group of relatively innocent people down to hell for an eternity of unimaginable torture. Um, there are some interesting elements. I think the production design works rather nicely. I like the idea that towards the end we go to a house where the house is almost constructed like a puzzle box. Um, we have a nice supporting performance from Goran Višnjić, I think that's pronounced correctly, who plays said wealthy pervert and manages to avoid too much in the way of cliches in his performance. He's clearly a loathsome individual, but he's not laying it on too thick. Um, and the way he's being tortured, I thought was interesting and original. He has a sort of brass clockwork thing that's through his chest and out the back, um, into which all his pain nerves have been entwined, which regularly tighten so that he can never grow numb. And he's been forced to carry this for 6 years. So it's all about horribleness and nastiness and people getting chains through bits of themselves and having parts pulled off and parts sewn back on. And it's all very horrible. But as I say, the issue is It's too long. It's too slow. It needs more energy. I think the lack of energy is a real issue. Um, I haven't seen, as I say, the preceding 7 Hellraiser sequels, some of which are apparently almost unwatchable and amateurish, several having been thrown together at very short notice and on very small budgets just to retain the rights. This is clearly, it's a proper film. It's not terrible by any means, but and it's going to be, I think, significantly better than pretty much any of those sequels, bar Hellraiser 4, which actually had Clive Barker's involvement. But that said, it's not particularly good. Um, Given how extreme and transgressive the nature of the original material is, it was disappointing that the plotting is then quite mechanical and quite A to B to C. I was expecting a story that was as unusual and creative as the original concept was, rather than something quite standard for a horror reboot. Um, I felt that the performances were generally fine, although they're dealing with thin characters. I thought Jamie Clayton as the new Pinhead Hell Priest character, taking over from Doug Bradley, who'd been in most of the previous films, was an excellent choice. I thought the designs of the Cenobites are all absolutely horrible, as they should be. Um, it's just there's a lot of good stuff here, and it's clearly made by people who care about doing it properly. But it should be tighter. It should be more focused. It should have had more character work so that we really care about these people and the horrible things that might happen to them. It is a disappointment, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And watching, if you watch the other sequels, it probably is.